Imagine waking up tomorrow to total darkness. No lights, no phone service, no running water, and it doesn't come back for months or even years. This isn't science fiction. It's a scenario that experts warn could happen through solar storms, EMPs, or cascading infrastructure failures. In the next several minutes, you'll discover the brutal realities most survival guides won't tell you about long-term grid failure. We'll cover the immediate dangers in the first 72 hours, the hidden threats to your water supply that could kill you, and the hard truths about security when society's safety nets disappear. By the end, you'll have a concrete action plan that could mean the difference between life and death for you and your family. Welcome to Food Decider, where we cut through the noise and give you actionable information for real-world preparedness. If you find this valuable, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss critical survival information. Now, let's dive into what really happens when the power goes out and stays out. The moment the grid fails, the impact is immediate and shocking. No lights, your phone won't charge. Most homes instantly lose the ability to heat. The darkness isn't just inconvenient, it's the beginning of rapidly growing hazards, especially in winter conditions or extreme climates. Most people rely on forced air furnaces that need electricity to run. That wood stove in your living room, it suddenly transforms from a cozy accessory into a critical survival tool. But heating is just the start of your problems. Without power, your ability to communicate with the outside world effectively ends. Now, you might think your cell phone will still work, and technically you'd be right for a short time. But here's what actually happens in a major grid down event. When you try to make that casual call to check on family, you'll hit a wall. All circuits will be busy. Emergency services claim priority over all channels. Those backup batteries and generators at cell towers, they offer only temporary relief. The system is designed to keep channels open strictly for calling 911 and broadcasting emergency alerts. When disaster strikes, the first message you'll receive won't be from your family. It'll be from emergency management. Mass emergency alerts will ping every phone simultaneously, echoing eerily through grocery stores, streets, and homes. These channels are prioritized for weeks during critical events, enabling authorities to convey essential instructions. This is why your immediate priority becomes keeping your phone powered. Portable solar generators are invaluable here, offering quick recharge solutions without burning through finite fuel supplies. Yes, you could use larger gas or propane generators to power appliances, but remember this critical fact: fuel is finite. Every gallon matters. You can recharge a phone using a car battery, but it's inefficient, and when a crisis stretches for months or years, every drop of fuel becomes precious. Now, let's talk about the resource that will determine whether you live or die: water. After the power fails, a clock starts ticking on your water availability. Cities depend on water towers, and these towers use electric pumps to stay filled. For a short time, gravity keeps water flowing through your faucets, but without power to refill these towers, those faucets will soon dry up. Typically, within 72 hours, you'll need to pivot to your stored reserves. This is why stockpiling water isn't optional, it's absolutely critical. The recommended bare minimum is 1 gallon per person per day. For a 30-day supply, that's 30 gallons per person. Store it in food-grade barrels, like 55-gallon drums, or any clean container you can find. Once the first sign of grid failure hits, you need to act fast. Fill every available tub, sink, jug, and bucket before municipal supplies are depleted. Many people think, well, I live near a stream or river, I'll be fine. Let me explain why this thinking could kill you. A nearby stream or river sounds like a blessing, but it quickly becomes a deadly risk in prolonged outages. Here's why. Urban sewage treatment plants also require electricity. While backup generators might offer temporary relief, their eventual failure means something catastrophic happens. Untreated wastewater floods into local water sources. If you're downstream from a treatment plant, that water isn't just dirty, it's toxic. It's contaminated with human feces and dangerous pathogens. Those pitcher-style filters you bought at the store, they won't cut it here, not even close. You need advanced filtration systems systems. Berkey units can remove most contaminants and pathogens, but even these aren't completely foolproof. For true safety, you need to invest in top-tier systems like the Aquadyne filter, which can process thousands of gallons and eliminate nearly all hazardous material. Never underestimate water contamination. In grid-down scenarios, a simple mistake, using a basic filter on polluted water, can result in severe illness or death. Planning now means living later. This is not an exaggeration. And here's something most people don't consider. It's not just about incoming water. The outflow is equally dangerous. Urban sewage doesn't vanish when the power goes out. Without electricity, treatment plants shut down completely, causing dangerous overflow. Neighborhoods become vulnerable to hazardous waste, which leaches into local aquifers and water bodies. If your water supply is downstream from these facilities, you need to know this now. Avoid using it until it's been thoroughly filtered and boiled. Let's move on to food, because this is where most people's plans completely fall apart. Within days of grid failure, grocery stores transform from lifelines to battlegrounds. Most stores rely on just-in-time delivery systems. Their stock lasts just 3 to 4 days under normal conditions. When disaster strikes, those shelves are emptied not by preppers, but by frenzied shoppers who failed to prepare. The real hoarders aren't the people with stocked pantries at home. The real hoarders are the unprepared masses who crowd stores hunting for leftovers. And here's another problem most people don't anticipate. Cash becomes increasingly worthless. Many stores need internet connectivity to process transactions, and some now refuse cash entirely. Finding a store willing to transact is rare. Finding one with stock after the initial rush, even rarer. This is why preppers have a massive advantage. Their pantries are already bracing for disaster. The critical lesson here is to begin or continue your own food stockpile now. Canned goods, freeze-dried meals, grains, and ready-to-eat staples should fill your shelves. Rotate your stock regularly, keep a written inventory, and ensure you have enough for at least several months. Once commerce halts, severe food scarcity sets in. Stores close their doors. Looting begins. Curfews are imposed to control violence and protect what remains. But here's the reality. Law enforcement can't watch every corner. There aren't enough officers. Darkness and chaos reign. And this brings us to one of the most uncomfortable truths about grid-down scenarios: security. Grid-down realities mean no streetlights, no alarm systems, no outside security monitoring. Criminals thrive in this environment. Looting, break-ins, and violence escalate rapidly. Police forces become stretched beyond their limits and simply can't keep up. The National Guard may intervene, but even their reach has serious limits in a widespread disaster. Protecting your home becomes your responsibility. You need to arm yourself ahead of time, not after disaster strikes. Stock up on ammunition now, establish safe storage practices, and most importantly, practice. Shooting paper targets at a fixed distance won't prepare you for the reality of a moving, threatening intruder in the middle of chaos and darkness. You need to train under stress, practice tactical maneuvers, learn to shoot while moving, deal with adrenaline surges. Your ability to act under duress could be the difference between your family's safety and tragedy. Neighborhood watches become vital in these scenarios. Organize your community now to keep watch in shifts, establish communication protocols, foster trust among residents. But understand the limits here. Neighborhoods will be wary of outsiders, even families desperately seeking shelter. Strangers, regardless of their intent, will struggle to be accepted. Many people believe bugging out to the woods is the ultimate fallback plan. Here's the hard truth. Survival is far more difficult in unfamiliar or hostile territory. Neighborhoods form tight defensive rings. Outsiders are not welcomed with open arms. You need to consider carefully your position and capacity before assuming escape is a viable option. There's another overlooked threat that can kill you just as surely as violence or starvation: poor hygiene and waste management. As the grid fails, basic hygiene suffers dramatically. With water at a premium, people rely on baby wipes, hand sanitizer, and minimal surface cleaning. This isn't sustainable long-term. You should stockpile these items, but recognize their limits. Extended grid failures will eventually mean reverting to more primitive methods for staying clean. But the bigger issue is sewage and waste disposal. Cities depend entirely on power for sewage treatment. In extended outages, systems back up and overflow, risking exposure to dangerous bacteria and disease. You need to develop personal strategies now: composting toilets, humanure, or even basic latrines for managing waste. These aren't luxuries or eco-friendly options for the environmentally conscious. They're survival requirements. Now let's talk about what happens after a month. This is where the true depth of the crisis becomes apparent. A month into grid failure, initial stockpiles across the general population are dwindling or gone. Food, water, and fuel become desperate priorities for those who didn't prepare. But here's what makes recovery so difficult. Without power, coal trains stop running, fuel pipelines freeze, utility employees can't reach stations to perform maintenance or repairs. And here's the catch-22 that most people don't understand. Restarting power plants requires electricity. You need power to make power. This creates a cycle that can delay recovery not by weeks, but by months or even years. Infrastructure becomes blocked. Roads fill with stalled, fuel-less vehicles, making movement and supply chains impossible. Traffic lights are out. Emergency services struggle to operate. Social order falters further as resources dry up. This is when community response becomes everything. Neighborhood watches and mutual aid networks transition from helpful to essential. You need to pool skills and resources, share food, water, security duties, and medical supplies. But be realistic here. Neighborly cooperation has limits as desperation grows. Isolated communities fare best when planning and preparation were undertaken ahead of time, not in the middle of a crisis. And there's one aspect of long-term grid failure that doesn't get discussed enough: mental health and morale. Grid-down living isn't just a physical test. It challenges your mental resilience in ways most people can't imagine. Fear mounts, fatigue sets in, stress compounds as the weeks drag on with no end in sight. You need to plan for morale. Stock games, books, and materials for shared activities. These can help preserve hope and sanity when everything feels hopeless. So what's your action plan? Let's break down exactly what you need to do. For water, store at least 30 gallons per person for a month, but more is always better. Invest in high-grade water filtration like Berkey or Aquadyne systems. The moment an outage begins, fill bathtubs, sinks, and any container available. Scout out alternative water sources now, but confirm their safety, especially their position relative to sewage treatment plants. For food, stockpile canned and shelf-stable goods for several months minimum. Rotate inventory to avoid spoilage. Build systems for gardening, raising livestock, or foraging for when commercial stores run completely dry. For power, own portable solar generators for critical devices like phones and radios. Invest in fuel-efficient generators and backup batteries. Count every drop of fuel and prioritize its use for absolute essentials only. For security, buy firearms and ammunition well before emergencies strike. Undergo defensive training that includes shooting under stress and tactical movement. Organize community watches now while there's still time. Fortify your home with upgraded locks, backup lighting solutions, and window barriers. For hygiene, store wipes, sanitizers, and bleach in quantity. Acquire or build composting toilets. Learn proper waste disposal techniques to avoid contamination and illness. For communication, keep emergency radios charged or invest in hand crank radios. Anticipate priority-based communication systems where most lines will be reserved for authorities. For commerce, maintain a stash of physical cash, but expect its use to be limited. Be prepared to barter supplies, skills, and labor as the traditional economy crumbles. Here's the bottom line. Preparation is not just about stocking up on supplies. It's about adopting a mindset of resilience and self-reliance. The ramifications of catastrophic grid failure are sweeping and severe, affecting every single aspect of daily living. Most official resources and guidelines only scratch the surface. Real readiness looks deeper, seeing beyond the first days into the long haul that could stretch for months or years. This guide has been, by necessity, a stark portrait of possible futures. While we can hope that such disasters can be averted, prudent action now can be the difference between just surviving and truly persevering. Prepare your family, build your resources, forge community ties, and most importantly, train for the stress and chaos that may come. Preparing isn't paranoia, it's responsibility. Whether you're a seasoned prepper or new to these concepts, the time to act is now before lights out becomes more than just a flick of the switch. What's your biggest concern about grid failure? What are you doing to prepare? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this information valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to Food Decider for more critical survival information. Stay prepared, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.